Have you ever stared at your life, felt that enormous sigh escape your chest, and thought, something has to give? You are standing right at the precipice of change. You want everything to be different. Yet, the idea of taking one huge, monumental leap feels like trying to scale Mount Everest in flip-flops. It is just too much. You scroll through social media, you see those shiny, successful people with their perfectly curated lives. A little voice whispers, I could never do that. My plate is already overflowing. My brain feels like scrambled eggs. My energy levels are basically hovering around zero. You feel utterly stuck, trapped in this bizarre cycle of excellent intentions and daily soul-crushing exhaustion. If that sounds like your Tuesday, your Wednesday, or frankly, every single day ending in Y, then let me tell you, you are absolutely not alone. It is so easy to look at our lives and feel this genuinely crushing weight. We start to believe that because we are not making these grand, sweeping, Instagram-worthy changes, we are somehow failing at adulting. We slap labels on ourselves like lazy, unmotivated, or just not cut out for greatness. But let me hit you with something absolutely vital, a truth bomb, if you will. You are not lazy. In fact, you are likely experiencing genuine burnout. This is an exhaustion that is not just physical, like you ran a marathon backwards, but deeply mental and emotional. It is like your brain just ran a marathon backwards, uphill, in the snow. Modern life, my friends, is a masterclass in subtle drainage. We have constant pings, an endless stream of demands, and the insidious highlight reel of social media. It loves to remind us of everything we are supposedly not doing. It subtly, expertly drains us drop by precious drop. It is not about lacking willpower. It is about navigating an environment that is practically designed to keep us perpetually on edge and perpetually feeling inadequate. Your pain, that heavy sigh, that longing for change, it is all real and it is valid. Here is the genuinely good news. You do not need to climb a mountain to change your life. Sometimes all it takes is a gentle, consistent step. Now, let us talk about Sarah. Sarah knew this feeling like an old, unwelcome friend. Her days had blurred into a monotonous gray cycle. Each one was indistinguishable from the last. She would wake up to this heavy silence, the kind that feels less peaceful and more like a void. It was a giant question mark hanging in the air. Unwashed mugs, silent witnesses to her daily defeats piled up in her sink. Her apartment, which once felt like a sanctuary, had slowly transformed into a visual, three-dimensional representation of her mental clutter. Sarah desperately, deeply wanted a different life. She dreamt of finally writing that novel that lived only in her head. She longed to learn a new language. She yearned to simply feel present and alive, rather than just floating through her existence. But every single time she thought about it, every time she tried to conceptualize taking action, an invisible, impenetrable wall would slam up right in front of her. The sheer size of her aspirations felt like an immovable boulder, completely blocking any path forward. The weight of her exhaustion was a physical presence. It was a tightness in her chest, a dull ache behind her eyes, a perpetual frown etched into her brow. Where would I even start? She would whisper to herself. The question echoed unanswered in the quiet, dusty corners of her home. But here is the really fascinating part. This is not just about Sarah. It is about how our incredible, squishy, glorious brains are actually wired. Imagine your brain as this bustling, complex city. You have the prefrontal cortex, which is essentially your brain's wise CEO. This is the planner, the goal setter, the logical decision maker. It is the one who tries to get all your ducks in a row. Then, deep in the city's old town, Nestled right in the historical district sits the amygdala. This is your internal smoke detector. Its job, its sole purpose, is to keep you safe. It screams, danger, threat, run, at the slightest, most subtle hint of something potentially risky. Now here is where things get tricky. When your CEO, your prefrontal cortex, proposes a massive, life-altering grand slam project, say, let us write an entire novel, or let us overhaul our entire routine from zero to hero, your smoke detector, that old amygdala, often goes into complete overdrive. It interprets big, unfamiliar, sudden changes as potential threats. It sees them as threats to your energy, your comfort, your precious resources, your very safety. And what does it do? It floods your system with cortisol, the stress hormone, effectively putting the brakes on everything. Suddenly, that overwhelming feeling is not just in your head. It is a biological imperative to stop, to retreat, to stay exactly where you are. This, my friends, is why you feel utterly stuck, even when you desperately, passionately want to move forward. Your brain is quite literally trying to protect you from what it perceives as simply too much change too fast. It is a very well-meaning, albeit slightly overzealous, protector. But what if you could bypass that smoke detector? What if you could find a way to gently, almost imperceptibly, whisper to your brain, it is okay. This is not a threat. This is just a tiny, manageable exploration. There is no need for the sirens, no need for the cortisol. We are just having a little look around. This, my friends, is the absolute genius, the profound simplicity, and the utterly transformative power of the 20 minutes a day philosophy. Think about it from your brain's perspective. If you tell your amygdala, hey, we are going to completely rewrite our life, quit our job, and move to a different country, it is going to hit the panic button with the force of 1,000 suns. It is going to scream, too much change, danger, retreat to safety, conserve energy. Do not do it. You will feel that visceral dread, that crushing overwhelm that makes even the simplest step feel impossible. But what if you told it, hey, we are just going to spend 20 minutes today on something new? 20 minutes. That is it. It is so small, so unintimidating, so utterly non-threatening that your amygdala barely even registers it. It does not trigger the alarm. It does not perceive a significant threat to your energy reserves or your comfort zone. It is like a tiny, almost imperceptible ripple in a vast ocean, not a tidal wave. Instead of the alarm blaring, this allows your CEO, your prefrontal cortex, to quietly, calmly get to work. Your logical brain can start to engage without being drowned out by the primal screams of the smoke detector. Each 20-minute session, each small, consistent action is like creating a tiny, positive feedback loop within your brain. Let us break down the magic of what happens on a neurological level when you commit to just 20 minutes. When you complete that small task, whether it is tidying a tiny corner, reading a few pages, or learning 5 new words, your brain does not just record the task completion. Oh no, it does something far more exciting and far more impactful. It releases a little hit of dopamine. Dopamine is often called the reward chemical, but it is more accurately described as the motivation molecule. It is what makes you feel good about achieving something, no matter how small. It is the brain's way of saying, hey, that felt good. That was not a threat. In fact, that was kind of pleasant and productive. Let us do that again. This is not just a fleeting feeling of accomplishment. This is fundamental neurological programming. You are literally actively building a new neurological pathway in your brain. Imagine your brain as a dense, untamed forest. Whenever you do something new, especially something that feels positive and rewarding, you are essentially blazing a tiny new trail through that forest. The first time you walk that trail, it might be a bit overgrown, a little difficult to navigate, but every single time you walk it again, every single time you repeat that 20-minute action, that trail becomes a little wider, a little smoother, a little easier to traverse. Childlike crayon drawing, hand-drawn style, colored pencil texture, paper texture background, simple illustration, soft lighting. A simple white stick figure-like character, gender neutral, with a round head and a basic smiley face, two dot eyes, curved mouth, outlined in black, first struggling a bit on a narrow, overgrown forest path, then, in a sequential panel, walking confidently on the same path, which has now become visibly wider, smoother, and clearer after repeated walks. This is the essence of habit formation. You are not just doing a task, you are strengthening the neural connections associated with that task. You are making it easier, more natural, and more pleasurable to do it the next day and the day after that. You are literally rewiring your brain to associate small efforts with small wins, which then accumulate into monumental, life-altering shifts. You are showing your brain gently, patiently, consistently that tiny efforts are not only safe, but also rewarding. This is how you cultivate intrinsic motivation, not through sheer willpower, which is a finite resource, but through the ingenious alchemy of consistent, dopamine-fueled positive reinforcement. It is an elegant dance between your rational mind and your ancient, protective brain. Let us circle back to Sarah, our friend who is drowning in a sea of unwashed mugs and unspoken aspirations. In her quiet despair, she stumbled upon this almost ridiculously simple idea. 20 minutes. Could she even find 20 minutes in her day, a day that already felt like a constant treadmill of exhaustion? She was deeply skeptical. The idea felt almost too easy, too small to make any real difference. But that very smallness, that sheer, unintimidating nature of it, was precisely its power. It did not trigger her usual resistance. It did not make her amygdala scream, "Danger!" It was just 20 minutes. The first day, with a heavy sigh and a lingering doubt, she decided to spend 20 minutes just tidying her kitchen. Not a full, sparkling clean, not a deep scrub, just 20 minutes of focused, intentional tidying. She set a timer on her phone, a tiny digital witness to her almost hesitant effort. For the first 5 minutes, she felt utterly pointless. She just stared at the mountain of unwashed mugs, a visual metaphor for everything she felt she could not tackle. But then, almost on autopilot, she picked one up. The weight of the ceramic, the slight stickiness of dried coffee, became a tangible reality. Then she picked up another. She moved some forgotten mail. She wiped down a small section of the counter with a damp cloth. It was not glorious. It was not a magazine-worthy transformation. But when the timer chimed, she had not transformed her entire kitchen. No. Yet, she had cleared one small corner. One small, visible, tangible corner. In that moment, she noticed something else. Something subtle. Almost imperceptible at first, but undeniably there. A subtle shift in her internal landscape. A tiny, almost feather-light lightness, where before there had been only leaden despair. It was the whisper of that dopamine hit, a quiet reward for a small act of agency. It was her brain saying, "Hey, that was not so bad. In fact, it was a little good." The next day, she tried again. The idea felt a little less impossible this time. 20 minutes of reading a book that had been collecting dust on her nightstand for months. Its unread pages silently mocked her aspirations. She did not devour chapters. She simply absorbed a few paragraphs, letting the words slowly filter into her consciousness. The day after, 20 minutes sketching in a forgotten notebook. Her hand felt clumsy and out of practice, but it moved nonetheless. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, like the first rays of dawn breaking through a long night, the heavy silence in her apartment began to lift. The mugs still appeared in the sink. Life was not magically perfect. But now she had a quiet confidence, an internal knowing that she could tackle them in 20 minutes. It did not feel like an insurmountable mountain anymore. It felt like a manageable, small hill. She was not just doing tasks, she was building trust with herself. She was teaching her brain through repeated, gentle action that effort did not have to mean exhaustion. She learned that productivity did not have to mean burnout. It could mean quiet, consistent progress. Over weeks, then months, those 20-minute blocks started to weave a new tapestry for her life. The novel, the one that had lived only in her head, began to take shape, slowly, sentence by sentence. Her language skills started to bloom, imperfectly but steadily. And the biggest change of all? The pervasive, quiet despair that had haunted her days was slowly, gently replaced by a quiet, resilient sense of agency. She was not just existing anymore, passively letting life happen to her. She was actively, intentionally building a life she wanted. She was growing. She was reclaiming herself. So, how can you start building your own tapestry tonight? Here are 3 actionable steps. The Breathe Again protocol, designed to leverage this powerful 20-minute principle. First, consider the tiny anchor. This step directly bypasses your amygdala's fear of overwhelm. By choosing something incredibly small and consistent, you build a habit without triggering your brain's alarm system. It teaches your brain that self-improvement is not a scary, exhausting ordeal, but a manageable, rewarding mini project. It primes your brain for more. To do this tonight, pick one single small thing you have been wanting to do, or one area you want to improve, and commit just 20 minutes to it. This could be reading a book, learning 5 new words in a language, stretching, meditating, or even just tidying one small surface. Make it ridiculously easy to start. The goal is not perfection, it is consistency. Do it tonight. Do not break the chain. Second, embrace the mental reset zone. In our overstimulated world, our brains are constantly processing information, leading to mental clutter and decision fatigue. Dedicating 20 minutes to conscious mental decluttering gives your prefrontal cortex a chance to organize, prioritize, and recharge. It is like defragging your mental hard drive, reducing anxiety and improving clarity. To implement this tonight, before bed, or at a transition point in your day, dedicate 20 minutes to a mental reset. This could be journaling your thoughts and anxieties, planning your top 3 priorities for the next day, doing a guided body scan meditation, or simply sitting in quiet contemplation without screens. The key is to consciously process and release, rather than letting thoughts swirl. And third, plant the skill seed. We are wired for growth and learning. When we dedicate time to a skill or a passion, even for just 20 minutes, it triggers the release of dopamine and other feel-good neurochemicals. This not only makes us feel good in the moment, but also strengthens neural pathways related to learning and achievement, fostering a sense of mastery and purpose. You are actively cultivating an aspect of your identity. To do this tonight, choose a skill you have always wanted to learn or a passion project you have always dreamt of pursuing. Tonight, spend 20 minutes on it. Watch a tutorial, practice an instrument, write a few sentences, learn a new cooking technique, or doodle in a sketchbook. It does not matter if you are good at it, it only matters that you start. Plant that seed. These 20-minute investments are not just about completing tasks. They are about shifting your identity. They are about moving from being someone who wishes they could do something to someone who does it. Each small, consistent action tells your brain, and more importantly, tells you that you are capable. You are growing, you are evolving. It is an act of radical self-compassion and powerful self-belief. Now, let us peek into the crystal ball and imagine what happens when you embrace this gentle power. Or if you continue to let the grand, sweeping changes intimidate you into inaction. The best case scenario is nothing short of transformative. By consistently investing just 20 minutes a day, you are not simply checking off tasks. You are fundamentally rewiring your brain. You are teaching your amygdala that small, consistent steps are not a threat, but a path to reward. Your prefrontal cortex, your wise CEO, gets to work unimpeded, building new neural pathways that make consistent action not just easier, but intrinsically more pleasurable. Imagine that novel slowly, surely taking shape. That new language gradually becoming fluent. Your home feeling like a sanctuary instead of a battlefield of clutter. You are no longer battling burnout, but building resilience. Each small win releases a delicious hit of dopamine, reinforcing the positive habit loop. Over time, that feeling of constant overwhelm recedes, replaced by a quiet, confident sense of agency. You become the person who acts, who grows, who achieves, not through Herculean effort, but through gentle, unwavering consistency. Your life begins to feel lighter, more purposeful, and far more aligned with the person you truly want to be. The gap between your aspirations and your reality does not just shrink, it disappears, replaced by a continuous, fulfilling journey of gentle evolution. But what about the worst case scenario? What happens if you do not heed the call of these gentle steps? Well, the truth is, nothing changes. That heavy sigh will continue to escape your chest. Those dreams will remain just dreams, gathering dust in the corners of your mind. Your internal smoke detector, your amygdala, will continue to win, perceiving any hint of significant change as a threat. It will lock you into that cycle of exhaustion and inaction. The mental clutter will persist. The aspirations will feel increasingly out of reach. The self-criticism will likely deepen. You will remain stuck in that familiar, frustrating loop of good intentions and daily exhaustion, watching those shiny, successful people with a growing sense of resignation. The gap between who you are and who you desperately want to be will widen, leaving you feeling less capable, less fulfilled, and more trapped. The gentle shifts, the small dopamine hits, the new neural pathways, these will never form. They will leave you reliant on a willpower that burnout has already depleted. It is a path of continued stagnation, where the weight of unrealized potential becomes a heavier burden with each passing day. So, here we are, at the precipice of your own personal change. You have heard about Sarah. You have understood the genius of your own brain. You have been given 3 clear, actionable steps: the tiny anchor, the mental reset zone, and the skill seed. The power of the 20-minute philosophy is not in its grandness, but in its humble, consistent whisper. It is about building trust with yourself, one small, manageable increment at a time. It is about showing your brain that growth does not have to be a battle, but can be a quiet, rewarding journey. Remember, you are not lazy. You are likely experiencing burnout, and that is valid. But you also possess an incredible capacity for change, for growth, for a life that feels lighter and more aligned with your truest self. You do not need a single massive leap. You just need to commit to that tiny, manageable exploration tonight. So choose your 20 minutes tonight. Pick one of those three protocols, set your timer, witness the quiet power of consistency unfold. Watch as your life, gently but profoundly, begins to breathe again. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content like this, and share it with someone who needs to hear it.